Hi. So we last left off here, where we had changed the textures on the buildings and the surfaces of the street and so on, and we had blended them correctly into the scene. Now it's time to populate the scene with people, trees, and such. Now, before we begin, it's a good idea to place a set of markers around here that will tell us the relative size of a person at every point here, because it's actually a bit difficult to calculate the size of people according to lines of perspective and so on. So a really easy way of doing this is to just open up the original Rhino file with the view and open up Grasshopper. And just draw a rectangle, bring it into Grasshopper, just make that into a surface. Determine the number of points according to what best fits the scene. So there we are. And at each one of these points, you can just draw a cylinder of the approximate height of a person. So use this. It asks for the radius. You could just make that, say, 0.2, and make them of height 1.7, maybe. Just about an average person. That's actually going to give you a pretty good idea of what height a person is at each point in the scene. You can add more or fewer people or references as you need. And now anywhere along these lines or on the surface where you place a person, then you have a reference close by that tells you more or less what size that person should be. So that's kind of what it's looking like. And you might just want to change the opacity of this a bit. Now we're ready for the super tedious process of putting in trees and people. Now, you can find these at dedicated sites, like MrCutout.com is actually quite good, especially if you pay for it. And if you don't, again, you can just Google people cutouts or tree cutouts. And then you'll get all of this. Now it's pretty simple to just get one of these, copy image, click on new, paste, and just select everything that's white. And you might even want to kind of increase this fuzziness a bit. You invert the selection, and you can copy and paste. And the people markers also help you with the relative size of a tree. So I've gone through and put together a series of trees for my scene. I'm just going to bring them over from a file that I had already prepared. Whoops, and that's all the way up there. So let's just make sure all of our reference layers are up here. So those are the trees that I put into my scene. And I could just create a new folder up here, call it trees. And put all of these into it. And it's really useful not to have these separate layers, because if you at any point want to, exchange one tree for another, or just edit one of these trees, you can do that. And again, the way that you edit any one of these trees is just the way that we had edited all of the buildings, which is, Control T makes it bigger, smaller. You can mirror them, so you can use the same tree and it doesn't look exactly the same. And at the moment, don't worry too much about shading at all. Just make sure that they mostly resemble each other in terms of how light or dark they are. So that's the trees. And again, for people, then you just do the same thing. You find them online and you bring them in. Not this one. And I already spent some time doing that. So there they are. Also, it's really good if you keep these separate, because if you have several of these projects already done, you can just do what I did. Duplicate the layers to another file. And you can choose a destination, a document that's currently open, put them into another file, and then you can individually change them around, which is super useful. And then you don't have to go through the tedious process of cutting them out and searching for them. So again, just make a folder. People. Put them in here. Now see, they're all well referenced according to the heights of the markers that we'd set. That's actually really, really useful, because it's very, very difficult to judge proper sizes. And in this people folder, I added not only people, but a few cars. Cars are actually tricky. You have to go and search for ones that actually match, actually match the perspective of the scene. So that would be something like again, just Google cars. Or maybe car cutouts. And it might be useful if you just have the spot on your scene open, and so you can just browse these cars to find the one that matches your scene while it's open. Because cars specifically are really, they'll look quite bad if you don't select the right perspective. Now, all of these will look quite flat at the moment, and they'll look just, just copy pasted not really good. The next part of this is going to be about modifying the shading in all of these in an easy way so that they start to blend into the scene more and they don't just look, just copy pasted on. Notice also birds. Everyone likes birds.